Hey everybody, Greg Pruett here, president of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, and today we're going to be talking about anti-gun, keyboard, parasite lobbyists. That's a whole lot. It won't mean much to most of you, but the people who want to hear that are going to hear that. So before I get too deep into that, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, either on YouTube, but especially on Rumble. Rumble is kind of the platform where we're going to have all our content. YouTube, Facebook, X, you never know with those platforms how much they're going to throttle our reach. And so the best thing to do is subscribe to our Rumble channel. And that way you always have that content up to date. All right. So I typically, when you deal with people who are extremely narcissistic and just toxic individuals, my best advice usually is just to ignore them. And oftentimes that comes because gun grabbers and the media and just liberals in general, they start attacking, and you just kind of ignore it because it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't matter. Like after 13 years, almost 13 years of running the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, I've heard the same crap over and over, and I've heard it for well over a decade. So it's the same kind of stuff. It doesn't really matter. When you get people who are allegedly on your side, or you think they're on your side, then it does cause a little bit of confusion for folks. Now, thankfully, most of the people who know the ISAA and understand the ISAA and know our track record and everything, they just kind of laugh at this stuff. But, I had a handful of people reach out and ask, what the heck are these people? Why are they attacking the ISAA? I thought I followed them. I thought they were conservative or whatever. And so against my typical and normal advice, and this will, for the most part, probably be the last time I really address it because I just have too much to do. I've really just ignored the stupid attacks coming from these people. And so I'll take a moment, debunk their lies again, and then we'll all move on because we've got more important things to worry about here at the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. So the two individuals that we're talking about here are on the left and the right. On the left is Brandy Paradee. On the right is Lauren Walker. And they're at the Capitol with the Speaker of the House. And I'll touch on that here just briefly in a moment. But the reason I decided to post this video, I'll throw it in an article for everybody so you have a reference point. But again, this is the same dumb stuff that I've seen for a really long time. And so I just kind of laugh when I see it. And this lie in particular that Brandy Paradee did, I literally laugh because I'm going, she clearly doesn't follow the ISA, didn't even bother trying to do any research. She just made something up in hopes that nobody would say anything about it. And so I look at this post here. If you can't read, it says we're none of the door bros, gun orgs, including the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, are part of this fight. First of all, we don't have an affiliation with the Door Brothers anymore. We knew those guys. We were friends way back in the day. But we haven't affiliated with them for a number of years. So there's lie number one. But then lie number two is she's talking about the NFA. You can see Senator Phil Hart, who's an Idaho state lawmaker, talking about the NFA and how bad the NFA is. Now, the ISA has opposed the NFA for its entire existence. We've always opposed the NFA. We've always spoken out against the NFA. We've always said it should be abolished. We've always supported legislation which would abolish the NFA. And everyone who follows the ISA knows that. Now, do I have the money to go file a lawsuit and try to do some big, huge national, lawsuit against the NFA? I don't have those kind of funds. We have done lawsuits here in the state, or a lawsuit here in the state, but I don't have, $300,000 and probably significantly more than that to go file a national lawsuit. So we'll get into some other stuff here in a minute, but clearly Brandy doesn't even understand how these lawsuits work. The national gun groups, the GOA, NRA, FPC, SAF, and go ahead and Google those, Brandy, so you actually know what they mean. You know what those gun organizations are, but they don't go around to all the state groups asking who wants to jump on board. So her tweet, on top of just being a stupid lie, is just dumb because she clearly doesn't know how any of this works. Okay, if the GOA came to me and was like, hey, Greg, can you throw up an amicus for us and support this? Absolutely. But typically when they're doing these lawsuits, they're looking for groups that have standing in the state where they're originating from. So they're going to go, in this case, they're going to go find a company, and maybe it's a national company, but they're going to go find a company or a person who's been charged and convicted of some sort of crime, and they're going to file the lawsuit in that state. Now, if it originates from that state, they may go in and seek, additional help or seek a local gun group to jump on board. But they don't go around to, so basically what Brandy's saying is every gun group in the state that's a local gun group and not one of the big national groups, you're all not fighting the NFA because you didn't sign on to a lawsuit you probably weren't even aware of. Like, we heard that the GOA was going to file a lawsuit, but they don't reach out to everybody and ask if they want to jump on board. That's not a thing. And it'd almost be a little strange for a lawsuit coming from another state for just some random Idaho group to all of a sudden be on board. Now, even filing an amicus brief, by the way, is not cheap. You're looking at least $4,000 to $5,000 in attorney's fees for them to put that all together. So that's coming from an attorney who actually does this consistently, because I asked him about filing amicus briefs on behalf of Idaho's gun owners to support some of this stuff, and he said, no, it's going to be at least $4,000. And I'm going, oh my gosh, okay, like, I don't mind doing it, but that's really expensive. Okay. So then let's get into the actual other lie, which is that the ISA doesn't do anything to help fight the NFA, which is not true. We have been looking at and supporting HR 335 for a long time. This was an article that I wrote back, I want to say on March 18th. And you can see right there where I said the real issue is the NFA. Okay. Then we also started, let's see here. This one is, this might be Labradors. Okay. So this is what her lie was based on, is on August 2nd. Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador came out and support with some other AGs to support this lawsuit. Okay. This I think is from June. Congressman Fulcher jumped on board HR 335, which is the legislation that is being put forward by Representative Eric Burleson out of Missouri. The text of this language, I wonder if Brandy knows. I wonder if Brandy and Lauren actually knew about HR 335. My guess is they didn't. And I wonder if they know what the text is, which is extremely small, by the way. If I remember correctly, it's like one or two sentences as the NFA is hereby repealed. So Congressman Fulcher jumped on board that, and we had been reaching out to and telling gun owners to reach out to both Congressman Fulcher and to Congressman Simpson. Okay, here's us pushing HR 335, which we did in email, we did social media posts, we did a whole bunch to try and push the repeal of the NFA. So again, that's just a little bit of what we had done this year to try and help push the repeal of the NFA. We've also spoken out in favor of the lawsuit, which Brandy talks about, that we are in favor of the lawsuit. So again, this is, and the reason I'm saying this is because I've typically only seen these kinds of stupid attacks from gun grabbers. So the only thing I can come up with is Brandy and Lauren want more gun control in Idaho, because no other explanation makes any sense with this kind of stupidity, especially since gun owners in Idaho and ISA supporters in particular know that we've been not only speaking out against this stuff, but we've been pushing or trying to help push legislation to fight this stuff. Now, we deal with congressional stuff the best we can, but a lot of the ISA's focus is on what's happening on the ground here in Idaho, which, by the way, no other national gun group even comes close to the work that the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance does on the ground fighting for gun owners. As an example, our preemption project, where there's been over 90 either ordinances that were in violation of the 2008 firearm preemption law, which was passed, that we helped, and there was a loophole that was closed in 2013. But we've helped overturn a bunch of those. We've worked with cities and counties across the state, from northern Idaho all the way down to the far southern portions of the state, to overturn those ordinances which were in violation. Okay, we fought against a handful of cities that decided to push back on that and helped overturn those. And we've also fought against anti-gun signs, no gun signs that were posted illegally in parks, on county buildings, on city buildings, whatever. We've helped get a bunch of those all taken down. Okay, so we focus a lot of our effort on what's happening on the ground in Idaho, and we also pay attention and try to help push the best we can on the big national issues. But there are national groups that do the heavy lifting on that kind of stuff. We just offer our support when we can, and encourage our congressional delegation to support any and all forms of pro Second Amendment measures in the State House, in Congress, including, by the way, when the big beautiful bill was being proposed, there was a huge push to just get rid of the NFA in its entirety. Now, all they did was get rid of the tax and lower it down to zero, which I think is potentially going to cause some problems if this lawsuit fails. Okay, which is why I'd rather just see HR 335 get through both chambers and get signed into law, because it would alleviate the concern we have with that lawsuit, which is that if the lawsuit fails and the Democrats take power, guess what? They're going to bring back that tax, which was $200, and they're just going to put it at like $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. They're going to do some astronomical amount, and then suppressors are kind of gone forever. Okay, so that's our big concern with what happened in the big beautiful bill. And so we were trying to push putting in the short act and all that stuff to just get rid of the NFA in its entirety through the big beautiful bill, and the Republicans totally caved on it. So there you go, which is par for the course for Republicans in Congress. All right. So what's happening here? Because I know there's conservatives that follow these too, and look, they've had opinions that I agree with. They have opinions I disagree with, but they're just out attacking now. They don't even care anymore. They had another lie that we paid a director of the ISAA $90,000 in 2023 to, and he didn't do any work. And so they number one, they're lying, but number two, they didn't even look at the tax form to see that we didn't pay anyone. That Aaron Dorr has never been a salaried person for the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. Not once, not ever. Okay. We did pay his company to help us with a massive amount of administrative work. That's the truth. That's it. So guess what? Nonprofits, sometimes they hire people to get help. I have ran the ISA, and I have a whole video on this. I don't want to get too deep into this. I'll put the other video in the description so you can watch it. But the reality is, I have been running this thing by myself, along with my family. My wife helps do stuff. My kids will help do stuff here and there. But I've basically ran it by myself for 12 of the 13 years. Okay. And in 1 year, when I was running not only the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, but I was also running the Idaho Dispatch, a news organization, I was kind of busy because guess what? I also ran that by myself. And so it was kind of like, okay, let's see if this company can help us do a whole bunch of bookkeeping and the mail project. By the way, a large chunk of the money that we had to pay Midwest Freedom Enterprises went towards our direct mail program. For those of you that don't know, that means snail mail. Okay, when we send out letters to our donors, or we're trying to find new donors to help with the fight for, to keep and bear arms here in Idaho, we do a lot of snail mail. Guess what? That's not cheap. Not only the postage, but all the paper and design and all that kind of stuff. A large chunk of that money that we had to pay during that year went towards our direct mail program. So again, it's stupid lies like that I expect from liberals and from gun grabbers. And that's where some of my confusion's coming in here going, well, wait a minute here. The only thing I can come up with is these guys want gun control. So they're just going to start making stuff up or twisting things to try and take down the ISA. In fact, Lauren has said she wants the ISA to collapse. She wants it completely gone. Okay. And I assume Brandy has the exact same feeling. Never mind all the massive amount of work and wins that we've had. Another lie, by the way. Lauren's like, oh, they've never had any wins in the last 5 years. We've had plenty of wins. If you paid attention, if you just asked, I could have told you what they were. So again, I don't know what else to think other than I'm used to this from liberals. the rhinos, the establishment, the mainstream media, gun grabbers. And so if you're pushing for the collapse of the ISAA, you're pushing for gun control, because that's what's going to happen. I can't tell you how much we've stopped. As an example, the NRA in 2016, when they were going to do constitutional carry, they pushed a version which was removing gun rights from law-abiding Americans. That's what the NRA pushed. We killed it, thankfully. And thankfully, a better version emerged from that. But that was thanks to the ISAA and our members. Okay. Had we not been around, first of all, constitutional carry would probably have still gone on for years before it ever got passed in some form. And the form that would have passed would not be what we have right now. I can promise you that. I can promise you that, because once that NRA gun control version had gone through, that's the version that would have stuck around for a really, really long time. And thankfully, the ISA didn't put up with that. So what's going on here? What, other than them doing what they're doing, like it just doesn't make any sense. And so I'm going to pull up a couple things here. So here's been one of their latest things. Remind all your friends that lobbyists are whores, not to be trusted. Look, I'm not a fan of a lot of the work that many lobbyists do. I'm not gonna call people whores. I don't think that that's professionally appropriate. And these two, by the way, are the opposite of anything professional. They have some of the most vile, disgusting tweets that you've ever seen. Here, as an example, and then we'll get back to the whole lobbyist thing. Here's Lauren. So you guys probably don't know. You can see Trent Clark. He's a moderate. I probably don't agree with Trent Clark on a lot of stuff. And here's Lauren saying, okay, misogynist, you can read yourself there. If I was your wife, I'd die too. So this guy's wife passed away, and that's what she said. Here, I'll put it back up. If I was your wife, I'd die too. I mean, that's not only not appropriate and completely unprofessional, it's just disgusting behavior. Like, who does that as a human? I don't understand why you're going to do something stupid like that. Anyway, so yeah, if you're a lobbyist, you're a whore. Now, do I lobby for gun owners here? Absolutely. Do I register as a lobbyist? I have to. I believe. Actually, I'm not actually sure you do, because I don't get paid as a lobbyist. I'm not paid as a lobbyist. I'm paid to run the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. And there's a big difference there. I actually don't believe I have to register as a lobbyist, but I just do it because the SOS office is like, look, you may not have to. This is years and years ago. You may not have to register, but do you really want the headache of somebody complaining and doing all? And I'm like, no, it's $11. I'll register and put my name on this stupid list. I don't care. I got work to do. So I register as a lobbyist, but I'm not actually paid as a lobbyist. But there's a lot of good people who go down and lobby for good things at the Capitol. There's a lot of good lobbyists who go down and help stop really bad stuff from getting through at the Capitol. But according to Lauren and Brandy, all of them are whores, no matter what. But here's the irony. Here's the part that I think is funny, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to read this, so I'll read it to you. This is the Idaho definition from the SOS office in code on who is a lobbyist. Anyone, keyword there, anyone attempting through contacts with or causing others to make contact with members of the legislature or legislative committees or an executive official to influence the approval, modification, or rejection of any legislation by the legislature of the state of Idaho or any committee thereof, or by the governor, or to develop or maintain relationships with, promote goodwill with, or entertain members of the legislature or executive officials. Folks, that's almost all of you. Almost anyone who is involved in politics is a lobbyist. Anytime you're a citizen and you're going through. Okay, again, this top line here is key. Anyone attempting through contacts, okay, or causing others to make contact with. Lauren and Brandy have both pushed people to make contacts with the legislature. And probably the governor, I don't know, but definitely the legislature and probably committees. I know they've pushed, some anti-illegal immigration stuff. And again, I don't necessarily have any issues with that. But again, Lauren and Brandy, you're lobbyists. By Idaho definition, you are a lobbyist. Now, the only difference is they're not required to, and this is where I don't even think I have to, and I didn't pull this up on here, and I'm looking at the website here. So it says, is everyone required to register as a lobbyist? And so, no, you don't have to. Okay. Obviously, not everybody who's contacting lawmakers, which makes you a lobbyist, by the way, not everyone is required to register. There are people who are, and there's some requirements in there. And the one that probably keeps Lauren and Brandy from having to do it is that I think here, what's it say? Persons who do not receive any compensation for lobbying and persons whose compensation for lobbying does not exceed $250 in the aggregate during any calendar quarter, including any person who lobbies on behalf of their employers, and the lobbying, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so basically, I think until you're paid $250 during a quarter or during the year in any particular quarter, you don't have to register as a lobbyist. And there's some other stuff like media outlets and some other crap in there. I'm not going to go through the whole list. But the bottom line is, most of you that are reaching out to lawmakers, you're telling other people to do it, you are lobbying someone to do something, right? And that's where that definition comes from. And so I guess that Lauren and Brandy are calling themselves whores because by definition, they are lobbyists. They are lobbyists, 100%. But that's the kind of people you're dealing with. Like it's just lies, it's slander, it's libel, it's stupid attacks that don't make any sense. And so somebody's going to ask me, well, why are they doing it? I wrote an article called about access politics. I'll put a link in there. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail here on it because it's, this video is already too long. But it's access. It's this right here. Okay. And I'm using a picture of Mike Moyle here, but this is just one example. You care about power. You care about access to people in power more than you care about your principles and more than you care about having the morals to just stand on those principles. So these two just sit there and scream on social media all day, right? Keyboard parasites, just nonstop screaming, and they'll attack anyone who is critical of people that they like. And that's because they are trying to defend their access to that power. And the funny thing is, I can tell you just from talking to people who've worked with these two or know these two, the second that they don't feel like you're pushing their narratives or you're doing enough to promote them, they turn on you, and then you're the enemy all of a sudden. It's just again, I expect this from a lot of people. I would not expect this from people who think they're conservative. Again, if you want to follow these two, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, but just know who you're dealing with. The lies and the attacks on the ISAA and other good organizations is totally asinine. And I guess I just don't have a whole lot more to say. I'll put some videos in the description so you can see some of the stuff that I'm talking about. The tweets one in particular is insane. I don't have a lot of time. I don't understand how they have this much time to sit on social media for two people who have accomplished nothing in Idaho politics, to sit there and then criticize the ISAA and all the work that you guys have done for the state of Idaho and fighting for constitutional carry, SAPA expansion, stand your ground, firearm preemption, and just so much more. Lauren, I don't know about Brandy. I haven't checked, but Lauren, in the same amount of time I think that I've been on X, has tweeted like 82,000 times. It's almost 100 times a day. It seems like if you're going to spend that much time trying to be involved in politics, do something productive. Do something where you're start an organization, Lauren or Brandy, start a C4, start a PAC, start a company. I don't really care. Do something productive for once. Do something where you can actually make an impact and have a difference. Screaming on X isn't going to do anything. And instead, all you're doing is spending your time trying to tear down conservative organizations and conservative lawmakers. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So anyway, I've said way more than I wanted to and spent way too much time on this. For the vast majority of you, again, ignore this crap. This is why I don't get on online spats and sit there and go back and forth. I'll say something once in a blue moon when I feel it's appropriate. But for the most part, I just ignore these parasites and move on with my life. I got I have too much to do to sit around and worry about this crap. So anyway, with that, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Always open, always willing to talk and chat about pretty much anything ISAA gun related. If you want truth, you want actual answers, always here to answer those. Not a big deal. Anyway, take care, guys. God bless.